pleasure, the board had the pleasure of having dinner with Judy last night at one of our members' houses. And she has an extensive resume to share her knowledge as a scientist for 44 years. As a doctor, she has a PhD, not a doctor. She has a PhD in life sciences, including planning, directing, and implementing programs in HIV, cancer, and thank you. And so she's going to introduce herself because these are a lot of things that I don't know anything about in the medical field. But it was very awesome to hear. One of the most important things I hope that you take away from this is what some of the food that we intake and what they're doing to us as far as the food. So we know that what Bobby Kennedy is training us on, or changing and telling us about, is really important. So without anything else, let's bring Judy up.
Thank you indeed for having me here. It's a wonderful venue. It's almost impossible to write my resume or even give a talk without in an audience like this, because of course everything you've been told in those 45 years since I joined the National Cancer Institute with a BS in Natural Products Chemistry, with a Bachelor of Arts in Chemistry with a specialization in biology. Why does that matter? Well, that matters because in fact we don't have the tools at the University of Virginia in 1976. I'm old. In 1976, when I entered, we didn't have a department of biochemistry. We had chemistry and we had biology. Biology was plants. Biology was plants. So I joined the National Cancer Institute on June 10, 1980. As a fermentation chemist. I'm standing on the floor, don't stand on the floor. As a fermentation chemist with an undergraduate degree. So I'm not a scientist until I have a PhD. An MD is not a scientist. Medicine is not science. You practice what I discover. Invention is not discovery. And so as the National Cancer Institute, I'm now working for that government that was shut down. So what I'm going to do for you, I hope, is get the message for every aspect that there's somebody here that will see something in a book, in a movie, in actually the science. Not one word of this or any of our books is my opinion. Nor is the real Anthony Fauci. Teresa brought that book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Bobby Kennedy got it, because Anthony Fauci is a fraud. And that's why I show you this first slide. And please, you will insult me if you say I worked for Fauci. Because in fact, I work for the National Cancer Institute, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease is not only one of the 22 institutes. He never worked for anything except the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. And he wasn't made the head of that until he lied on his resume, so in order to get the job. So you see on this first slide here, I have to go back and thank you, Brian, and the others who said, do you work for Anthony Fauci? And so, no. In 1983, June 60 day, 1983, after I got fired from fermentation chemistry in 82, I got RIFT, a reduction in force. Ronald Reagan comes in 1980, and he comes in to reduce the size of the federal government. So they shoot him, assassination attempt, on March 30th, 1981, dates matter and the story changes. So you've got to go back to the books, the movie, and the true literature to understand where the fraud comes in. So we all know what happened to Jim Brady, and they tried to take your guns away. I'm just showing you the parallel with AIDS, because LAV is lymphadenopathy virus. You get a swollen lymph gland. Gay-related immune deficiency was 1982, more or less. But when I was in fermentation chemistry, I was fermenting viruses grown in cell lines, meaning animal mRNA, DNA, and protein. Here are words that you're going to think means different things. So Luc Montagnier isolates and characterizes LAV, lymphadenopathy virus. He associates it with gay-related immune deficiency. It's on your slide there. And HIV was never HIV. So Dr. Rossetti, my boss, I'm 23 or 25 years old, and this matters to your kids and your grandkids for most of us. So I'm 25 years old. I'm the only person they let Frank Rossetti hire. The joke was on him. And I answered the phone and I said, Dr. Rossetti's office, how can I help you? And there were 3 people on the phone. Bruce Chabner, head of the National Cancer Institute at Fort Detrick. None of the other institutes of the NIH were at Fort Detrick, only the National Cancer Institute. And the manufacturer, why don't we just say fermentation chemistry, a little IPA or wine in a nice vat. We had the beautiful, thank you Roxanne for the beautiful lunch at the place where they made plants as medicine. That's what I did. And so HIV is shown in that electron micrograph in the inset of this picture where I'm pointing, but that's not LAV. And we can tell the difference on the electron micrograph because you have to see a virus nano. They're 100 nanometers. Any of your masks, you know, the N95, you just suffocated yourself. Because the filters we put on our flasks in the incubator with all kinds of animal viruses are 0.2 microns. That's 200 nanometers. A retrovirus is less than 100. So there, Tony Fauci's on the phone with Bob Gallo, and this is and always was about cancer. Again, because AIDS, acquired immune deficiency, is deficiencies. These are deficiency diseases. A world without cancer. John Richardson, the Great Awakening, G. Edward Griffin. So you're going to hear all these things in movies. Okay, so HIV didn't exist in nature. It was Fauci's first gain of function. So they called me on the phone and they said, I hear you have a paper in press. Yes, because I'm a technician, but a technician never goes, a BS degree never goes on a scientific paper, and neither does an MD in 1980 unless you have a PhD. Now they put anybody on the paper, even the people who funded it. Be careful how you're reading your papers. So my PhD was defended November 14, 1991. 1 week earlier, all over the newspaper and TV, I'm not showing you anything that's not right here. Magic Johnson, he tests positive for HIV, and they continue to call it AIDS. So I'm in my thesis defense. You're obviously nervous because you're in front of the world's experts, and they say, and we only have a blackboard, we're not blessed with slides. We had Xerox machines. I'm old. And so they say, based on your thesis, George Washington University, where they took Ronald Reagan that day, will he or will he not die of AIDS? And I looked at them like they were moronic, because they were. Because it's like, you didn't read the 300-page thesis I wrote that shows you molecular biology. I'm a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. There was only one department in the world, George Washington University, the head of it was Alan Goldstein, thymosin alpha-1 and thymosin alpha-4 and 5. So we were making peptides. None of these things are new, and you're going to keep hearing these things. So I just show you that. So I said in answer, HIV cannot cause AIDS as long as you don't inject it. And at the time, we didn't know the sleight of hands. So they screamed at me by the third paper. Do you have paper and press? Yes, sir. Give it to us. No, no can do. That's what I usually said. And I said, I can't. It's unethical. I'm not an author on that paper. It's not my work. I'm a technician. I designed the experiments. I carried them out. I proved it. But I'm not the PhD. I'm not the scientist. I didn't do the work. But I proved it by 1991. And I took it from in vitro in the lab, chemical, to black transvestites at George Washington. Black transvestites, George Washington. We'll keep talking about this. And then, of course, Magic Johnson is antibody positive. Not test positive, not PCR. What is the test? So what you see there in the inset is the book The Band Played On. I want you to watch the movie The Band Played On. Randy Schultz, it was 1993. Who was the star of that movie, Alan Alda? Now, a horrible movie called the Dallas Buyers Club was 2013. Watch those two movies and watch what they're doing to the American church. I'm going to call it One Nation Under God. We just said the prayer. And up until General Flynn asked me not to, I said, with liberty and justice for sale. Ever since I was jailed, you'll see more. Okay, so what about vaccine AIDS? So, okay, HIV never caused AIDS. Vaccination is not immunization, it's extermination and sterilization. So that paper, the inset of this paper here says 2016. Think about Trump. 16. AIDS, the journal AIDS, standard vaccines, increase HIV transcription. That would be mRNA transcription during antiretroviral therapy. So you can take the chemical drug, you can take their poison, and you're still going to express the mRNA. And the heart of my PhD thesis was oral. Vaccination is not immunization. They made a test, they made a drug, the test is where you get all the money. Okay, so we're just going to pop back and forth here to vaccine AIDS is COVID-19. And I didn't say COVID. And so it's autoimmune. See the big X? Autoimmune, that's your X chromosome. Women, X chromosome. Every human being has an X chromosome. Why are your boys getting autism? I'll go on. Autoinflammatory disease in cancer. Unintended, I put in parentheses, consequences of 4 decades of crimes against Americans by the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, and the EPA. And I want you to keep thinking of recent weeks. So now, I've got all these diseases listed, and every red asterisk after these diseases that didn't even exist in 1980, nor did the word autism. When I finished my undergraduate degree, my minor was in behavioral diseases in children. And like Bobby Kennedy, these did not exist. Autism is not a genetic disease, and neither is cancer. So here you are, Gulf War syndrome, fibromyalgia, lupus, diabetes. Every red asterisk is a different variant or a different poison, why don't I say statins, where they took out parts of your pathways that you need to protect so your cells can actually communicate with each other. So I'm just going to play Rob McCoy here, my pastor and Charlie Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy. Poor man, we get him in so much trouble. But I think you can hear from this little passage of a speech, a sermon he gave in 2023 when his friend Eric Metaxas wrote a book called A Letter to the American Church. And everybody in the American church attacked Eric Metaxas. And so Rob was irritated that day, so this is the sermon he gave. It's not exactly the one he gave at 9 o'clock, because I helped him teach him a few words. So let's see what he says.
And by the way, there's no such thing as an autoimmune disease. The body doesn't attack itself. You've introduced something into the body that's teaching it to kill itself, i.e., anyone? When did we get peanut allergies? America was built on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now you can't even have peanuts on an airplane because somebody's going to die of, anaphylactic. And where did that come from? Who introduced that? How did that happen in our culture? The body attacks itself. And they call it healthcare. We've never been sicker in all of our lives. And now they're introducing strains of a virus. Why are they doing that? Why are we using government dollars to allow them to create things that kill us?
Okay, so I'm trying to explain that slide to him 3 years earlier, and he's playing with his phone, and I'm thinking, okay, he doesn't understand a word I'm saying. And so I'm like, Rob, listen to me, but I love him, so I'm not going to say, Rob, will you please look up for your phone and listen to me? And he said, Judy. He said, do you know the subtitle of Darwin's thesis? And I'm thinking, okay, the origin of the species, okay. Natural selection, okay, it was science, nature is science. And he pulled it out on his phone, that was what he was looking for. And it's shown in the inset here. And this comes from Big Sandy, Texas. He got it out of that library before those floods just hit earlier this summer, boy, because all that stuff's gone. And it says that it's by means of natural selection. There in the little bit is or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Wait a minute. God gave us everything for our happiness. Life, this is the first thing, liberty in our Constitution. Liberty is given by God. Freedom is man-made, freedom from government tyranny. And so life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we're going to go on, because the key to immunity is not to defile the temple of the body of God. Oh, favored races in the struggle for life. There's no struggle for life if you live in the United States of America, where you don't live under tyranny. You have liberty, that your Constitution, and we're a republic with a representative electorate. What can't you have? A PAC. No more political action committees, because we're not getting our voice. So I'm going to be as political as I can, because that's what Pastor Rob taught me. But no, it's not his fault. He apologized last Sunday. Because so vaccination is not immunization, it's extermination and sterilization. So the culture in HIV, what Tony Fauci said, was only gay men, IV druggers, users, and prostitutes could get HIV. Did he lie? No, he didn't. Because they injected HIV, it was never LAV. It was never gay-related immune deficiency. Magic Johnson wasn't whoring around with prostitutes, he was engaged. Oh, so we decided, why are we injecting our athletes? He was injected in a health insurance test. He came up antibody positive because he's mandated to take these things. Why don't we just say to play in the NBA? Oh, okay. The best and the brightest is what they're taking, our athletes. So let me continue. It gets more loud. Our book, Ending Plague, A Scholar's Obligation in an Age of Corruption. Listen to it. It's the only time Frank Rossetti ever talked publicly. I have to say, when you listen to it, you'll hear that I put my little squash ball in a couple of places to encourage him. But it's important that we, so here we go, and here, no, sorry, not you, honey. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Well, we almost got the technology down. Okay, so I want you to see November 8th of 2011. You're remembering dates. That's the day I was almost killeried. Well, what I'm going to show you is what in 2011. Look at the picture and read that word. That's an article that came out December of 2011, and the CDC, your Center for Disease Control News. So on November 8, 2011, one day before I was almost kidnapped, killeried, and killed, they were in the NIH Clinical Center. That's where Tony Fauci worked. Look who's in that picture. From left to right, a guy named Bob Gallen, who's the Cancer Center. Why don't I just say Leidos? Never walk through that thing in the airport again. Oh, the Cancer Center was Leidos. Why are they a bioweapon in an airport? detonating the injections they've been injecting, the little bioweapons, since 1980. Just saying, that was your cancer center. He was brought in there. He's doing this in 2011. He was brought in somewhere now. So the Gallon, next to him is the lady in the pink, is a Russian who's a scientist at NIDA, Drug Enforcement Agency. There's Harold Varmus. Why was he standing there in 2011 running the National Cancer Institute? There's Hillary when she's Secretary of State. Secretary of State. And so she's Tony Fauci and Francis Collins, who took over as the NIH director in 2009 and pretends to be Christian. Just saying. So I'm going to read this article. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton called for a renewed push for an AIDS-free generation. Notice she didn't say HIV-free generation. She said AIDS. That's acquired immune deficiency. Which virus is causing the acquired immune deficiency or disease? Okay, a renewed push for an AIDS-free generation in a November speech at the Clinical Center, the Mazer Auditorium, marking 30 years of the fight against HIV/AIDS. No, we cured that in 1991 with my PhD thesis, and what we never did was ever inject anything in somebody that was a carrier of HIV. But HIV was in every hepatitis B vaccine given to athletes, military, everybody at birth. That's how you could only be in IV drug users, prostitutes. Oh, they were your vulnerable population, so we injected them. Okay, she said, marking 30 years of the fight against HIV/AIDS. Now she's put the virus with the disease. The goal of an AIDS-free generation is ambitious, but it's possible, Clinton said, to a packed audience, emphasizing the use of scientific advancements to stem the pandemic. Wait a minute, was AIDS a pandemic in 2011? Nobody even knew the Dallas Buyers Club when it came out in 2013. Think about it. We need to let science guide our effort. She told the packed crowd, Mazer Auditoriums is 3 times this room, and every seat was taken, except me, I was near jail. This packed crowd, scientists, administrators, and State Department, and Department of Health and Human Services officials. Why were they there? She's the Secretary of State. What's the plan? Clinton emphasized using a variety of tools and a combination prevention strategy. She's going to end HIV/AIDS nationally and globally. Nationally and globally. Okay, there you're getting your WHO and what you can't do. Okay, so here's what her 3 intervention strategies are. Ending mother-to-child transmission. Oh, that means you're going to sterilize the women. And I'll show you why later. Ending mother-to-child transmission. Expanding voluntary medical male circumcision. Okay, man, any of you volunteering? I think it was Joshua. During battle as adults, they circumcised. No, that's mutilation of a necessary body part. Just saying. So what did Bobby say? So when do they do voluntary medical male circumcision? That's day 1 when the baby's born. So you didn't want the vaccines? You're going to get vitamin K. Well, vitamin K is made by your body at day 8, and a bris or a circumcision in the Bible is day 8. Oh, but we're going to do it at day 1 because your day-old baby volunteered to mutilate himself on his first day of life. Okay, and the last one is ramping up treatment of people living with HIV/AIDS. So, well, wait a minute, they're just fine. We'll talk about it later. Why? Because in 1991, when I defended my thesis, 1 million people were infected with HIV. In 2010, 10 to 25 million. COVID-19 was your criminally and economically liable. Because ACT UP, those guys that they gave AIDS, You know, it wasn't GRID, it wasn't gay-related immune deficiency. They fought in the California public health and the whole public health. You make less than $72,000 a year, they got to pay for everything. Testing, treatment, oral drugs, expensive oral drugs like you see on TV every night. I'll never get through this if I don't show you. So our book, Scientists, A Plague of Corruption, notice Bobby, his Children's Health Defense is on the bottom. This book published April 14, 2020. I started writing it the day I saw Brian Hooker's I saw William Thompson's handwriting, a page from his notebook, when I met Brian Hooker in 2014, August 29th. Our first book, Plague, was in press, and I'm like, I saw that. He wrote in his handwriting to the entire upper echelon of the CDC, the FBI, everybody else in an email, and he said, what are we gonna do about the problem with the blacks? Oh, because the safety signal just will not go away. And that's what they wanted to do, is sterilize you. Okay, so here comes, we're going to go back to 2011, and I'm going to say HIV is to AIDS as SARS-CoV-2 is to COVID. HIV never caused AIDS, and SARS-CoV-2 never caused COVID. Why? Did it exist? Yes, they made it in the lab, and I'm showing you in the far bottom right of that picture when you're looking at it, an October Journal of Virology paper. At the end of October, it was submitted and published in 2004. And it says retroviruses pseudotype with SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus spike protein, efficiently infect cells expressing that little angiotensin receptor binding domain. And look at who did that. Massachusetts, Harvard, your AIDS institutes. China is what, he doesn't say the Wuhan virus, he says the China virus. Why? Because it was made in Beijing. And it was shipped and made at UMass and in Boston at your Harvards. Why do you think President Trump's going after education? I'm going to show you how brilliant the light shines in those two statesmen that aren't politicians. And so you see the China people, and that was Beijing, China. So now you've got an email that I wrote, and you can read it in detail, August 31st, 2011. I was jailed, I showed you in the last Scientists at Sea. I was jailed November 18, 2011. I escaped being J6 kidnapped on November 9, 2011. On that day, if you listen to that chapter, you're going to see I had a job interview with Patrick Song-Chong. I think you might still want to interview, but what it says there, that's your science journal, saying controversial CFS researcher. No, I'm the director of the Lab of Antiviral Drug Mechanisms at the National Cancer Institute, and my PhD thesis gave you curative strategies and patents and proof in both HIV, AIDS, and cancer. That's who I am. Now, not that I'm irritated or anything, but I am. So at any rate, I write this email. And I write it from my professional. This was all stolen. My name's not Mikovits in 2011. It's Nolde in October 7, 2000. Okay, so I write it to the head of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, another institute of the NIH. And they told me on this Friday before Labor Day to agree on a manuscript by the 6th of September. And I'm out of town and I said, that's impossible. You know, I can't even get back in town and access the Institutional Review Board, the personal data of your names. And I said, and I'll just read it, I said, given the complexities and limitations of this study, many of which were not recognized at the time, the flawed experimental design, the blood working group was supposed to get you a blood test, a PCR test. And they knew it wouldn't work because, hey, that's what I do for a living, design PCRs. I can not only tell you if it's there, I can tell you if it's on or off expressed in disease cause, and that's what we'll do for you. And I say we, that's the royal we, Trump Kennedy. Okay, I said, that's not good science or the appropriate process. What's the rush? Afraid of the truth? How many of these viruses were introduced into the human population and are now threatening a whole lot more than the blood supply. Yeah, because a few declared it impossible 40 years ago, and John Coffin, the reviewer of our October 23rd, 2009, Tomorrow, or the next day, Science paper, that John Coffin was the primary reviewer. He took out all the main strain data, he took out all of the data, all of the immunology data, he took out all those other diseases like fibromyalgia and lupus and autism and ADHD and all those things they just created a drug market for. And John Coffin and his friend Jonathan Stoy, another reviewer of the paper, his student, his professor, they hand it to the folks like Robert Malone so your hands aren't dirty, and then you're stuck trying to defend it. But the ones that defend it, they're out of there. Bad guy, Robert Malone. Anyway, I'm sending this only to Simone, the head of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and Frank Rossetti, because I will make this rush a public relations nightmare for the entire U.S. government. I have integration data. That means the virus integrating into your chromosomes. Anyone? Anyone? Can they get to your chromosomes? No, they can't. No biology. They can't change human. They cannot make us transhuman. On many strains and many new variants. Did those arrogant SOBs introduce these into humans and are now trying to cover it up? And then pedigree the negatives in a PCR test. Think about the PCR test they just did for you. You know, pedigree the negatives with a cutoff so high it wouldn't find a willing Roman in a whorehouse. Okay? That means everybody was negative. Everybody was negative. Everybody became positive in 2019, and all they did was flip the PCR. We know it was never a test for a virus, so just saying. And I said, wonder if anybody will listen to press conferences for me. How many new recombinants? From vaccines, from lab workers, doctors. The first ever contagious human retrovirus spread like mycoplasma. No, you didn't get mycotoxins and mold from your house. And you're just a racket so that you run around like chickens with your head cut off. It was always injected in all the shots. They're all so dirty they can't even tell what's in them. Okay, doctors, nurses, watch Plandemic Indoctrination. Let's get the doctors and the nurses, they deserve it. So they were trying to spread it to us to see if we'd go home and spread it to our children. Okay, it happened once. I said, first ever contagious human retrovirus? Are you kidding me with 15,000 exclamation points? Happened once. How many xenografts? Cell lines, all your cancer therapy is xenograft. Please don't give them your tissue. Please don't go anywhere near them. They're just killing you and carrying out their next experiment to kill you. How many vaccines contain mouse tissue? It's all of them. These sick people lost their entire lives, and they were called MECFS, autism, psychosis, ADHD. Not long COVID. And this travesty of justice won't be carried out at their expense, where they have to pay all the money and your insurance doesn't cover it. Not again. If we have to write a dissenting article, we will not, and I will not co-author any paper. I will not put my name on a paper that has fraud. When you're the senior author, you're responsible for all of it. Well, they threatened Frank Rossetti, Harold Varmus, with his entire life work, and Sandy Rossetti, who was the first one in 1980 that said the spike protein alone causes disease. Put it in a synthetic lipid nanoparticle. That's what Robert Malone did. Invent something that it would go into cells, because they won't go into cells unless, of course, you use DMSO, and then every spike protein on the planet's going in DMSO. Or if you buy food at a grocery store, every egg is dipped in chlorine bleach, and every spike protein goes in your egg. So that's why eggs don't ever get them in a grocery store. Anyway, so you literally made SARS-CoV-2, and we're just going to listen. Does anybody know who's in that picture? The woman. Scarf lady. Oh, so she takes off the scarf. This is 2024 before the Clay Clark in Michigan, where they're trying to shove bird flu down your throat. Literally and figuratively. The eggs wouldn't lay eggs. Okay.
The reason the comparison to HIV is important is because HIV was also asymptomatic. I mean, you couldn't see the virus through symptoms because people were infected for 7, 8, 9 years before they developed symptoms. But HIV quietly destroyed our immune system, and we learned a lot about immunology from HIV, and it's changed completely our cancer therapy. We're learning now about mitochondria and viral impact and brain fog and the changes in our neurons and the cells that nourish our neurons that really allow us to think and move. And we're learning that because what of long COVID has done. And so there's two sides of this coin every time. There's a lot of destruction that mild and moderate COVID can do that is on scene, just like HIV was destroying our immune system. But what came out of that is brilliant science that changed how we treated HIV. And if you're diagnosed today, you can live a very normal lifespan, and people not only survive but thrive. We need to get to the place where people with long COVID, we've done the research so that people with long COVID can not only survive but thrive.
There's no such thing as long COVID. Amen. It's XMRV. It is and always was myalgic encephalomyelitis. Chapter 5 of our first book. Oh, they injected it in your polio vaccines. The first ones they passed through mice since 1934. Have fun. I don't want to hear anybody say your God didn't give you immune system because you've been fighting this. So HIV is not COVID. How COVID is similar to AIDS and HIV is similar to SARS-CoV-2. Neither one of them caused any disease if you never got another injection. No shots have ever been proven. And in 2019, Bobby Kennedy, that board, we showed you the fraud in every single vaccine in every single year. Every shot since October 23rd, 2009 was a COVID shot. It had to be manufactured. Don't say it again, Mitch. Sorry. She just, biatch, Fred. I'm sorry, So what I'm showing you is a summary to the talk I gave at Healing for the Ages a couple of years ago. And this journal article was published in the UK in a study called a journal called Metabolic Brain Disease by Gerwin Morris, who was a UK literally COVID patient, got sick in the lab like a lot of them did, and a psychiatrist. We had to take my name off this paper because what you're seeing in the inset is our 2010 patent for the cytokine signature of disease. The patent, my name wasn't Mikovits, it was Nolde, they got caught, and Frank Corsetti in Newmarket. So those are the royalties. Just keep that in mind. Diagnostic identification of variant strains. We're introducing strains. Rob got that right. Murine leukemia virus, XMRV. Murine leukemia virus related virus, retrovirus. Not a coronavirus, never was. They told you, they published it. 2004, follow the fraud and the money. And so then Omnitura called Genius. Both of these were small Santa Barbara, California, out of UC Santa Barbara, pharmaceutical companies. What did they do? They destroyed our patents. David Martin, pandemic indoctrination. They waited it out 16 years later. It's hard to have the anniversary of that paper that came out online a day after my husband and my anniversary, which is October 7th, 2000. It came out online, October 8th, 2009. I used to say it destroyed our marriage, but it made it a whole lot of fun because we'd have to, everybody was on TV. For the first 2 years it was good. For the next 2 years I was running for my life. Okay, so here's, and I was trying to outsmart him. Here's, again, you're going to see expression of manufactured. The M in the mRNA viruses means manufactured. It does not mean messenger RNA. It is not a biological entity. And nothing in CBER, the Center for Biologic that Bobby has control of, is a biologic either. Everything on that TV, they say the #1 prescribed a biologic. They're not biologic. That's a lie. That's fraud. Bobby's taking down those commercials, not by inhibiting free speech, But by saying you have to put every adverse event and everything, the commercials are like 3 minutes long. They tried it in a football game, and it's like everybody's like, no, not buying that product. But here's December 2nd, the head of Pfizer Research. I didn't say the CEO, for those of you who are criticizing what Trump did with Pfizer. Okay, so the head of Pfizer Research on December 2nd, 2020 said the vaccine contains a spike protein, see image. No, that's fraud by the New York Times. That's not what a virus looks like, unless you want to throw your dryer ball around the air. So called syncytin 1. So vital for the formation of human placenta in women. In vitro fertilization is murder. Yeah, it's against God. Because what happens when you implant that little 64 cells, 6-cell division from in vitro fertilization? You fertilize the sperm and the egg in the lab, and then you gave the woman all these hormones because she's been injected with so many monkey, mouse, cow, pig, aborted fetal, placental, any mammal, endogenous retroviral envelope, syncytin, it's a fake word, it means synthesize, cells together, polymerize. What's a polymerase chain reaction? You polymerize, you create a polymer. Okay, so this comes from the Mabio lizard, and I just do this for Brian Artis. That's a 2018 paper. And thank God for Dr. Kleinhardt, he saw it April 1st, of 2017 when I was there. So this is in PNAS. And again, all mammals who carry their young so we don't lay eggs so the snakes can get them. It's not rocket science, folks, it's biology. So Bobby Kennedy called me and a lot of other people up and said, will you come to Chicago and see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on December 18, 2020? I said, sure, Bobby, it was Christmas, and I'm like, okay. And so I got him back in 2021, and I said, will you come sit on Pastor Rob's stage at Godspeed Church? And look at how far back Rob is in the chair. And there's Bobby, and you see, I'm just like Charlie Kirk there. The microphone's right at my left knee. I'm just going to sit there and look pretty. I know I don't have to say a word. All I put is two men in a chair who are both statesmen, who could both have a conversation, speak the truth in love without making it personal, and get the job done. And so they became friends that day. I'm not going to play this sermon on gratitude and forgiveness, these couple of texts, but it matters with the sterilization. I might play a little bit of what Rob says here, just so you can hear this, because it matters with lawsuits and things that we did in California. It matters because Newscomb will never be elected governor. Premeditated murder of David Moldy, his name was not Mikovits. And so here you go.
So God, how are you going to fix this with my grandson? Molly and Micah didn't want the baby to be torn apart and evacuated. They wanted a stillbirth to say goodbye. They wanted to hold their son. They only found one hospital in Ventura that would do it during COVID. It was in Santa Paula. And there was a mother-daughter doctor team, so gracious and thoughtful and kind. They prayed with my daughter and my son-in-law. They rejoiced over little Theodore as they held his lifeless body in their arms. The nurses cried as they said goodbye. And great comfort was brought to them by this mother and daughter doctor team whose last name was Levin. It was Dr. Levin's wife and daughter. When I heard the heartache of my sister, Dr. Judy Mikovits, that her husband David was misdiagnosed as having died from COVID, and she knew it to be a farce. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. provided the autopsy of her husband, which conclusively proved he didn't die from COVID.
I'm just going to stop there, because what he does is he gets the confession of Robert Levin, so the wife-daughter doctor team. So his pregnant oldest daughter was, she went into a hospital. All those people that got vaccinated were shooting the spike around, and the baby's stillborn, because that syncytin attacked itself. And you're finished at that point, and the baby would end up either being evacuated, ripped from the womb with a vacuum cleaner, or they could have the baby. And the wife-daughter doctor team, Robert Levin was the head of public health. We filed a lawsuit, Bobby Kennedy, me, and against, and Tom Clayman followed it. I heard Judicial Watch. the lawyer claimed and filed it June 29th of 2020. You never put a cancer patient or anybody else in a mask. Ever. You will kill them. Okay, so I'll just leave here because I only got about 10 more minutes, so I want to get to some simple solutions. So vaccination is not immunization. We don't make a fake card. We make an immunization kit. We make oral, nasal, and mucosal solutions to hit the pathways because our water is poison, our air is poison. Most importantly, our soil is dead. Roundup is not a weed killer, it's a soil killer. So which is it, the virus or the train? Well, which person are we poisoning? Our GMO food? When did we think we could genetically modify God? And it's not food, it's poison. So all that processed food, you've heard it now on the TV. So here comes along John Hewlett, and he had a download from God in 2007 when he had appendicitis and they were going to kill him in the hospital. And he shows me this powdered recipe that you see on the inside, a recipe. It's milligrams in a 10-gram scoop of these different nutrients powdered to a fine line so that they hit the outside of the cell. And I said, John, I'm 90% convinced because I can see a recipe. I made antistats my whole life. That's what our botanical drug, that's what the patent is with Genius Omnitura. I hit whether it goes to cancer or whether it goes to your brain. I'm just spitting the plant that I put in the product. And so again, 90% convinced, show me the functional study. How do you tell a counterfeit? You hold it up to the light. This is spectral clustering. You eat this food. Let's see if I can get off the plug again. You eat this powdered. It's a powdered recipe. You get alkaline earth minerals, calcium, magnesium, alkaline earth, the positive charge, and zincs. They're called transition metals. They're in our soils. They're in our plants. They're what give things color. Our animals eat weeds. We don't. When your dog gets sick, he goes outside to vomit after he eats the grass. You don't eat grass, but if you eat it, you'll vomit. And again, the grass is glyphosate. And the glass is poison. So you need living mineral water. This is the spectral study. It hit the 3 key pathways of all things COVID. Turn down TGF-beta. It's in every cytokine signature right here. Every cytokine signature has a purple TGF-beta. That's what Frank Rossetti won the 1992 Distinguished Service. So here you have a powder. Put it in all your water. Don't drink any of those waters in plastic bottles. They're dead. We're going to get those labels changed because that's not water. You show me every chemical in there and we'll get you out there. So here's a product called ProImmune. So in Genius Omnitura, the inset is cancer. By the way, we cured Biden's prostate cancer, knowing exactly which shot they gave him. They didn't stop testing him. They gave him the shot that gave him myoclonic seizure, that is, the lights are on in everybody's home. And then they gave him, Mitch McConnell look. You're out. And then you come back. But before you come back, did you crash your car? These people that are just passing out, syncope. These people are just falling downstairs. Those are the problems. So here's ProImmune. Epoch Times only interviewed 2 people that day, me and Ted Fogarty. He's a radiation scientist, radiation oncologist. So ProImmune protects you from radiation. A Leidos machine. So here's a little powder, and at the molecular level, the top inset, this paper is Genes in Development 2012. So they have to tell you. So here here's all you need for fuel of your entire body. Glucose, glutamine, and lipids. So when glutamine is favored, you're in hypoxia, 2 breaths in any mask. So keep running and you'll make lactic acid. Your heart, your muscles, your heart is the largest muscle in your brain, that's where your mitochondria is. That's what that idiot Deborah Birx taught you, that we learned a lot about your mitochondria, and so we failed to get to your X chromosome, so we just have to kill everybody and call it COVID, and make you all be chickens with your head cut off running around looking for the cure dessert. But here you have a biochemistry paper, a review paper, that shows you exactly how you make energy from gas. It's not the lead in the paint on the walls. It's the lead in the gasoline as a fume. We little black children in Washington, D.C. weren't eating the paint. You want to stop the 5G, put the lead back in the paint. And go get kills, and you won't have any problem with mold either. So here's ProImmune. It's already in the physician's test reference. It's already considered part of an immunization strategy. So these three things will be considered an oral immunization strategy. So I got the facts. Here, right here is nicotine. Nicotine added, top right. Nicotine adenine dinucleotide. When you're using glucose, here's lactic acid, pH, potential hydrogen. Nicotine, adenine, dinucleotide, potential hydrogen. You make that from fatty acids. Statin, eat fat, butter. Don't ever take a statin again, stop it today. Your inflammaging is what all of this is. So we dysregulated glucose and lipid metabolism, fat metabolism. And lipophagy, not autophagy. That's your cell membrane. Your brain has a hard shell on it because it's a lump of fat with signaling molecules. You know, when my Tourette takes off, it's because it doesn't hit my heart before it hits my mouth and my brain. That's Tourette's. But here's Dulce, and Natalie Nicole's here to answer questions later. In these healing essential oils with frankincense and myrrh that you put on your skin. Get those hand sanitizers off your skin. Use soap. Don't ever take a hand sanitizer. Don't stand 6 feet apart. You have to be educated. But here's your metabolic neuropathy in the bottom screen. At the bottom of this is NF-kappa B. Dulce, I asked Natalie when I met her, just like John, I said, Natalie, this looks good to me. Can you do that analysis for me? And she did the recipe and what it is. And she hit the 4 pathways, what we really need: metabolic neuropathy, that's white blood cell tissue inflammation, insulin resistance, hyperglycemia, hyperlipidemia, and all roads lead to NF-kappa B, that's AIDS. That's my PhD thesis. Here's another one, the essential amino acid leucine. We have a pathway called the mammalian target of rapamycin. Dulce alone, Dulce as your sweetener will allow leucine on the right-hand side, your mitochondria, GTP, not ATP. What is GTP? Sense of taste and smell. No such thing as Lyme disease. It's a spike protein that's hurting this mitochondria. Glutamine, glucose, leucine, essential amino acid. It goes to building strong bones. We're not all floppy and we're not strong bones. So it's right here. We're making an oral IV line of high-dose vitamin C from all natural sources in plants, microsomally. And finally, the best product of all, Nelson's the best product of all, but this one's going to come out soon in the botanical drug space. 2004 botanical drug guidance. And this is called oncogenic. So I took that patent, I got tired of whining. I called Ed Group and said, Ed Group, can you make this? And he said, yeah, and he made it 10 times better than I thought. So Paximune, anytime they say lupus, Paximune is your only true vaccine. It's bovine interferons in saline. So they took out Louis Farrakhan, Minister Farrakhan, that their religion was Dr. Aleem, who made Paximune in the 80s. They took interferon out of her life. The FDA said, call it bovine proteins. My 94-year-old dad got sick. And he said, Judy, do I take the thing with bovine proteins? And I said, that's it. When they're going to kill my dad, the FDA, get that label off there. So we're going to call it. Anyway, so what's in here is prickly pear, the oils, bakelin, skullcap, citrus, CO2 extracted, carbon dioxide. You're extracting the oils in carbon dioxide when you get oxide. So these are the good seed oils given by God. We've got the amygdalin. Now we're going to get amygdalin. We're going to get Laetrile. And we're going to be able to heal everything. So this is the call to action for you, Stuart. This is what I handed President Eric Trump and General Flynn in the Clay Clark September in Pennsylvania. This was the call to action. They said, you got 5 minutes, and Judy can't talk for 5 minutes. Everybody knows that. Okay, so they said, what would you do? And I showed this verse in 2019 for Freedom's Phoenix School in Phoenix, Arizona, Libertarian Ernie Hancock. So repeal the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, enact an immediate moratorium on all shots. Remember, vaccination is not immunization, but I got to give you the powder because you're exposed to all this stuff every day. And the entire vaccine schedule, until the entire vaccine schedule is safety tested. We just got that with the movie, An Inconvenient Study, last week. We're going to get this. End all mandates, restore liability, convict the criminals. At the CDC, FDA, and NIH, they're on the picture. I showed you John Coffin. We can go for the crimes against humanity. Eliminate the advisory committee on immunization practices. Robert Malone's doing a great job of penance over there. And use the NIH, CDC, and FDA patent royalties to compensate all victims of this 35-year plague of corruption. And it was 35 years, 8 years ago. 2019. So this is my phone number. I gave that talk standing outside of public health with Robert Levin when they were going to vaccinate those people that got injured. I asked that little girl that got seizures from vaccines, I said, honey, which slide do you want me to hold? And I didn't want to be there. I was practically crying. I'm tired of standing on street corners when nobody else is there. And people are spitting on me out of cars because these liars have lied. And so I use, until you wake up, she handed me, we will fight for you. And I use this quote by Thomas Jefferson, if the people, he's the only scientist in our founding fathers, Benjamin Rush was a physician, they're not the same thing. If the people let the government decide what foods they eat, what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in sorry state, as are the souls who live under tyranny. We got one last chance, and it's November. It's not next March. We better get this government in November. They shut it down because the government fiscal year is October 1st till September 30th. They shut it down because they do it every year. They always did it. And those of us who go to work, go to work. And we don't work for that. People will show up and do their job. We don't work for money. Very, very, very important not to let them rape you again because they shut it down for 20 months. Hey, there have been less chemtrails. So thank you. We'll take some questions. And we've got Natalie and Stuart in the audience. And if you have a question, we've got Debbie running around with the mic, and she'll ask the question. If anything, anybody wants anything clarified.
One quick thing, would you mind reminding people about the eggs? I want to make sure everybody hears what you said, because Judy talks fast.
I have to, they're usually coming after me. By the way, if anybody has an iPhone and wants that presentation, go in and set it up for airdrop, and I'm going to start airdropping it to everybody to share it with everybody, so you can share it with the people who couldn't come here tonight. Just make sure you send it to Deborah Burks, because I'm more like President Trump than Charlie Kirk. You know, I pray every day that she meet Jesus before she gets to God the Father, because she needs a defense attorney, because it's not going to go well. So this is the only way I know how to pray, is with a little comedy. So, okay.
Okay, good.
Give my name.
Oh, I have a question about my daughter-in-law had works at a medical facility and had, after her second COVID shot, she miscarried. And I read an article that there was a correlation.
There's not a correlation, it's causation. And that's what happened to Rob McCoy's grandson. And yes, Jim Thorpe and Kim Bess have done the most work on this. It's absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, miscarriage, stillbirth, and when these babies are ripped out of their mother's wombs when they're dead, it doesn't go well. My 2.5-year-old niece, by 2 MD doctors, my sister Karen said they had to, and I'm sorry, family, if you have to hear this, but we pray she swallows every day. It requires 24/7 care, never made a sound. Yeah, and that's the torture they have to live with. In the United States of America, you don't have to sacrifice your firstborn. Look at your phone, because I'm hitting some of these. You don't have to sacrifice your firstborn. Not a correlation. That's what Pfizer research admitted. They were sterilizing kids if you were pregnant. So Molly Stevens was already pregnant, almost full term, and being spiked in the protein. So why the eggs matter? Please don't go in a grocery store with a pharmacy, because it's going through the air vents. Everything they shoot You know, shedding always was a thing, we just never called it that. That's how you walk in there, you inject the disease-causing entity. All of the disease, you're injecting the virus. So don't say vaccine anymore, say immunization. So every shot, every vaccine is the injection of the disease-causing entity. But HIV did not cause AIDS. And the aluminums and the formaldehydes and the monkey cells and the mouse cells and the dog cells of everything, every flu shot, every shot after 2009 was a COVID shot. It had to be manufactured because they were liable if they left the monkey, mouse, cow, pig. That was what our 2009 paper. So they've been lying to you. Every flu shot, every shot. So it's not just that shot, how many shots, and it's called pathogenic product. Causative, not correlated. Absolutely, that caused it. And I'd go file malpractice against the hospital. I wouldn't file a lawsuit. I'd file malpractice. That's what they did. If they don't know everything in that shot, they can't give you that talk I gave you. If they can't show you everything in there, then game on. Medical malpractice. You're liable.
One other thing I want to mention is that we will have all of these slides in our video that we put online too. So you can watch the video as well if you
I'm
can't
lining up
hear.
the phone, so if you look and you say accept when you're waiting, and then you let it come up, you'll see the slides come up on the screen. Okay, next question, as we're going on.
Hi, Dr. Judy. First of all, I think you're an American hero. I self-published my first book. It's called How to Be a Warrior of Light in a Dark World, A Patriot's Guide to Optimal Living. And half the book is about mindset, and the other half is about conspiracies that I've researched. The longest chapter is on COVID-19. I have one on the FDA and the CDC, our healthcare system, our education system, and I've been following you right from the beginning of COVID, where I saw Dr. Zev Zelenko get demonized for successfully treating COVID with his hydroxychloroquine protocol. So I signed the book over to you, and I thought, like, what one question would I like to ask Dr. Judy, since I'm so well studied on everything you talk about, and here's my question. Through all of the shit that you've been through, or all the attacks and things that happened to you, how did you get through it? Was it a go-to person, go-to people? How did you get through all that?
Go to God.
Amen.
Yeah, on my knees. I mean, when I got jailed, I knew what I did in 2011 on, I told Annette Whittemore to go Fauci yourself. You don't tell the wife of the most powerful man in all of America, the most powerful lobby for Harry Reid. Harry Reid was never legally elected.
Yes.
Never. It was a Harvey Whittemore Ponzi scheme. We now call it a PAC. Get those PACs out of your government. Get fair and legal elections back. We're a representative republic democracy. So our representatives are our representatives. And I love her. So how I got through it, so I'm in jail. I'm like, okay, I did it again. I said it again. I'm sitting here and I know what I did. I know what I did to get there. Because when we escaped at Scientist at Sea, just listen to that chapter. When we escaped getting killer, it was all God. That was funny. You know, because when I married David Nolte and I moved to California in 2004, finally we were commuting back and forth, had a couple houses from Frederick, Maryland. I bought my David a Boston whaler because he was a Coast Guard captain. He did search and rescue, guarded Puerto Rico during the Vietnam War. Don't know how many kids he has over there, but such is life. So I bought him a Boston whaler and then a little whaler. We called, and I literally named it Jonah the Whaler. I said, sure, God, I'll go to Nineveh, but I'm going in an unsinkable boat with a really handsome Coast Guard that can operate by the stars. They can read the stars and without a GPS. And we bought that whaler. We left the Newport Harbor to go 100 miles up the water, and the GPS went out. Cracked the champagne. David did it masterfully with a sextant and a map. Don't let that telephone do your job. Put it down, get your papers, write it down. Never do anything on a computer. You won't remember it unless you have cursive. Write it down. Every time I did this as a kid, my mom said, my stepfather Ken said, Judy's mouth gets Judy's body in trouble. You know, they used to just call me trouble. Frank Rossetti was like, what'd you do this time, Mike? And I said, well, you wouldn't, you know, like a bad kid, because he could have been my father. But at any rate, and I'm like, you know, I kind of, and he's like, okay, let's figure this out. But, you know, so we had not necessarily, you know, we're one nation under God, not religion. With liberty and justice for all, not for sale. Though lawfare was done on me when I'm sitting in jail. I know what I did, but God sent a helicopter and that little Jonah the whaler, and we escaped out the back door. I called Frank at 5 in the morning on November 9th. That was the day I was supposed to be Hillary. Remember, I knew who she was. I grew up in Washington. I know. And so I called Frank. It's 5 in the morning. I got an interview with Patrick Songchong. First person I called was Ken Richards of Epigenics, and that's why we named it Oncogenics, for those two companies that own all the property. And so I just, and I said, I can't make the interview. And he said, throw the phone in the water. The house was surrounded. He said, throw the phone in the water. And the next call I made was Frank Rossetti. He said, you moron, you've got a boat. They can't take you off the water. And throw the phone in the water. I'm like, oh yeah, right, Frank. So I threw the phone in the water. It's a great story. Just listen to scientists and see. You'll hear God. These aren't science books. These are testimonies. How I can sin and God keeps coming back. He knows. If I've only told Fauci, I've only seen him 3 times in my life. And every time, the last time was 2010. And I put my finger in that little chest, and I said, I kept my promise. I will make this rush a public nightmare. I will spend the rest of my life so you, with all these diseases that didn't exist before they started injecting you, your cows, your pigs, your birds, your soil, your GMO. You didn't have to get the injection. You ate the crap. Yes, sir. Don't go in a grocery store with a pharmacy. Don't eat an egg. I don't care if it's cage-free. They dip it in chlorine, bleach. Everything goes through that shell in that grocery store. They're deadly. Yes, sir.
Do we have any good information that would say that the virus was not created at the Wuhan laboratory?
Yes, it's that paper I showed you.
Oh.
I'll go back to that paper. So I'm going to send you on our website, therealdrjudy.com, is therealdrjudy.com. It's this paper that I put on the inset of that biatch Deborah Burke's talking. That's a 2009 paper. It's at the far right at the bottom. That is absolutely, it was not made. It was made in Beijing, in Boston, and in Berlin. Those are the guys who made it. It's right there, that SARS-CoV-2. And the monkey virus didn't hurt anybody, so they used HIV on the inside of the cell. So they used an HIV sensor. It says it right there. They had the murine leukemia virus. They couldn't sterilize people. That's what Hillary told you in 2011. 3 key interventions. Cheryl Hines, congratulations, Cheryl, on the View. You know, Bobby said circumcision. Yeah, because it's vitamin K synthetic with aluminum. There's no such thing as male medical circumcision. God didn't make replacement parts, and nothing God made was a waste. That's why I told you John Hewlett with Cardio Miracle had appendicitis. That's a lymphoid organ. Now you're doing voluntary appendix, taking them out, because if that appendix bursts, you die. So they've given so much people appendicitis. That's an immune organ. It's not a waste piece. It comes from the bursts and birds. Eat chicken. Eat more chicken. Yes, sir.
So, Professor Mikovits?
Yes.
So the C-19, was it created in Fort Detrick?
Well, it was, the SARS-CoV-2 was created by those 3 laboratories, but all of them in the U.S. are government funded on government funded grants. So part of when you get those government funded grants, in technology transfer. That's why we must take down the medical grants that are given to these universities. No more extramural program. Intramural, it's your intellectual property. I fought with it my whole life, and so did Frank Rossetti, Candace Burke, Luca Montagnier, Joe Oppenholm. They were all murdered in 2022. Everybody's dead. I'm the only one left with the biggest mouth. So that paper shows you where they made it, but it was government funded. Therefore, it was always at Fort Detrick. They shipped SARS-CoV-2 causing COVID-19. There are more variants since then. If I show you all the variants and all the shots, you're never going to ask me what the next thing is, because you're going to know they were all injected all the time. And all they do is pick off their chart, and that's also a 2011 publication that was submitted by the Bat Lady, Shei-Jing Li, on Halloween. You know, come on, are we that dumb? On Halloween in 2011, by the way, I'm close to jail by that time. And you'll hear it in these books. These books are just testimony. So yes, there's proof positive. No, it was shipped directly from Fort Detrick in 2015. Frank tells you, listen to chapter 6, the first half of Ending Plague. I played it on our book club, which I played Wednesday nights, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. And I played and showed you these slides. Failed public health response to HIV/AIDS. So Hillary told you they failed, and they're liable for every single kid they gave that hepatitis B shot to at birth. Anybody want anything at birth? You're going to mess up your methylation. It's not vitamin K, it's synthetic. You make vitamin K, you get it from bee pollen. Go get some bee pollen, put it in your Cardio Miracle with a little Delsa and a little Proimmune. It's an easy drink. Don't go anywhere near a grocery store with a pharmacy, and I'll give you hydroxychloroquine every Sunday. Yep. I can doxycycline is pertussis, GTAP. Those are your bacterial ones. Fine. Give you 5 days of ivermectin. You got everything covered. I got a little stamp that says Light Dove Ministries MED Medical Education Group, because at Godspeed Church we believe in immunization, not vaccination, and we're not letting anybody go on a mission trip or to camp or to anything else without being properly immunized. Nobody should be injecting people to go on mission trips. Nobody, nothing. So if you I don't care what your church is. I don't care. We're one nation under God. If you let people inject your children, your grandchildren, your parents, no, to be in a nursing home, take them out of the nursing home. Take care of your family. You know, we can do this right. I hope that answers it. Yeah, proof positive beyond a shadow of a doubt. We have the publication in 15 of when China, and by the way, the Wuhan lab looks exactly from the air like Fort Detrick. Even the water supply. My second favorite environmental lawyer is, sorry, I just forgot his name. So Bobby Kennedy's my first favorite, and the guy in the movie 1986, The Act. 1986, The Act. Barbara Loe Fisher, A Shot in the Dark, 1984. Never was Candace Owens, that was plagiarism. 1984, A Shot in the Dark, was Barbara Loe Fisher, and trying to think of his name because he's really funny. He was one of my lawyers, and he wrote the compensation program. That's why I put in that last slide for Vaccine Court. So if you listen to the chapter of My Identity Stolen in Vaccine Court, you see how they knew with every single variant what you were going to get. They knew with every single thing, and they followed it by which kids they injured. They followed it with did the flu shot. You know, the old peoples are in diapers and the teenagers are in diapers, and we're all meeting in the middle as we've destroyed our bladder and our kidney. Why do you think the cell line they used is called human embryonic kidney 293? Because they got to get it in that cell from the monkey cell, and the only way other than DMSO is to inject it. Please don't use DMSO. Don't use anything unless you see a practitioner like Global Healing. These slides, that summary was from 2 days ago. That Healing for the Ages is online. We're on our way with Natalie Nicole with Dulce. We're going to Texas tomorrow. and the Healing for the Ages. Artist, group, Ely was structured water. This stuff isn't pure life, it's pure toxin. There is no such thing as an electrolyte as grok. The word just means any positive charge or any negative charge, any ion. Oh, well, sulfuric acid has some positive and negative charge. You don't know what they put in that water and what's pulling off that needle on any kind of IV infusion. None of what I'm saying right now was the same before 2014. 2014, why do you think we can let the pardons go back to 2014? Because all the criminals in Congress, you say in that last slide, convict them. What did you know and when did you know it? Because that's going to determine the sentence. What did you know? Hey, I just showed you Fauci standing in that picture promising to kill me in 2011. Do you think we can go after those people? No problem. We can take down the people that did this because it's not the fault of the MDs. You never got the education or the chiropractors or the naturopaths or the herbalists or anybody else. What are you going to do with the herbs? Are you going to acid extract them? Are you going to alcohol extract them? Are you going to make a tea? Pineal tea is not where sermon comes from. It's a synthetic drug. All I had to do was say it and I got beat up on a plane a couple of weeks later. I know what the government's doing. It's 1986. It's easy, I'll make it for you. And I'm going to give it to you. And Bayer Monsanto took it away from kids in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study that I consented 25 kids privately funded, 12 and 12. Patients control, I missed by one, because I knew in the ones it wouldn't work. So hear me well. There are kids with things called autism. It's not a word, it's not a thing. It's which virus did you get, which neurodegenerative disease did you get, that won't respond to sermon because it didn't hit that pathway. If you don't hit these pathways, that's why the patents and the poisons matter. If you don't hit these pathways, you don't have, you need to know if it's going neuroimmune or cancer. The bottom is cancer and lupus. The bottom, that's your autoimmune diseases, TLRs, toll receptors, lipopolysaccharide, many starches and sugars in a lipid particle. So you don't want to take a lipid nanoparticle. You don't want to take a liposomally made synthetic anything. Be careful about what you're taking. The nutraceutical industry is now the pharmaceutical industry. They're one and the same. Nattokinase is not natto, not kinase. It's deadly. You will never make glutathione again. And they'll go ahead and take Tylenol and you'll kill yourself. And they will have called it COVID. Sorry, I'm just telling you how they're lied to you. Sorry, Jeff.
Hi, Judy. Talking about the pharmaceuticals and the stuff, can you tell what you're doing right now, what you're working on with, like, the Cardio Miracle, the Mycronic Silver, the Dulsa, the Proline Greens, and what you're putting together to help combat what they've done to us?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're following these patents of Genius Omnitura, and it's called a SMART platform. So it's safe, it's synergistic, it's going to, I forgot what the other 4 things were, but all you've done, and what we did was we patented that in 2010, a botanical composition for prostate cancer. So what do? We use the botanical drug, 2004 Botanical Drug Guidance Act, if it's generally regarded as safe, and the recipe you took together hits 3 pathways, and that's why Dulce is so important. I needed mTOR, 1 and 2. I needed to be able to fuel the sensor of that GTP mitochondria, the G protein, where people were getting post-exertional malaise. So the brain's on the top, all roads lead to NF-kappa B and glutathione. So glutamate right there, quinolinic acids, the quinolones, quinine water, anyone? We had to sell off our drugs with Epigenics Pharmaceuticals. We had to sell off the quinolones in 2004 to run the companies. So what we're doing now, I got irritated, so I just went back and I called Ed Group in February, Healing for the Ages, artist group. Ely was water and Janice Schmidt with bee pollen and bee products. And I said, okay, we need oral IVs. Because the IVs are all deadly, intravenous drug. You don't inject IVIG. No, you don't inject pooled antibodies from everything because they had to call it COVID because they couldn't call it CVID. Because CVID means common variable immune deficiency, because nobody makes the right antibody to the right virus, to the right poison, because that's what your plasmacytoid dendritic cell does. That's what Paximmune drives, your type 1 interferon. You know, hit that cell with aluminum and you've got lupus. Aluminum in everything. Aluminum in everything. Aluminum in everything. Just do not shoot yourself. The IVs are so caustic they pull the metal off the needle. 2017 Gotti paper using scanning electron microscopy, which is what Ed Group uses as well. And he uses a light scanner where you put your fingers on it so you can see the aura and the light shining. So the functional studies shine a light on it. Do the meta-analysis. Show how it works. And we have the computers. It's AI. Do the AI. It's easy on the recipe. And it costs a little bit, but you can prove it works in each individual and goes exactly where you need it. So we're making an entire oral IV line, because if you don't put a needle in it, they can't touch you. The FDA can't touch you. If you want to use a frequency therapy, as long as you don't stick a needle in it, they can't come near you. So we just released amygdalin. I mean, can you believe how much fun this is? We're going to get Laetrile, and they can't do anything about it. But it has to be microsomally processed, not liposome. So watch the Braveheart Nation University with John Richardson Jr. It was all day Sunday. And they're going to show you every doctor and how these things are made. So our projects are to take and make everything microsomally, get as much in a recipe as we can to hit the other pathways and then add them as drugs. So that also says Casodex. What is Casodex? It's a pill called bicalutamide. It's a pill. And so when you use the pill, we use it very, very low dose. They use it 10 times the dose, like the hydroxychloroquine. How they made that was a vaccine. And they made Trump an idiot. John Davidson, the Epidemic of Fraud. John Davidson is the movie. It's on our website, Epidemic of Fraud. Protocol 7 you want to watch, because you're going to see how the sausage is made. It's not pretty, but we got this. So we're going to put everything orally bioavailable. We need the powders. Dulcipromune and Cardiomiracle have to be powdered because the root vegetables you don't want to extract. Chris didn't beat cancer, and you will die of cirrhosis of the liver if you drink a glass of carrot juice every day, even if you're a teetotaler. Every day. It's in the book Ending Plague. Listen to Frank Rossetti. So again, all of these we've been lied to about what hepatitis. We've been lied to. If you listen to Ending Plague, you'll hear it, and you hear it in a really good way. Hope that answers it. That's what we're doing. And at Dulce and everything you're doing with the cannabinoids, I didn't want to go to the cannabis. Because of course, Trump said, hey, a little cannabis, a little weed. So when they started rolling together, they said, Judy, how do we make America healthy again? I said, grow, baby, grow.
I just wanted I forgot to mention earlier, we brought our friend back. Stuart Rhodes is here tonight. So he is starting up Oath Keepers, and boy, they didn't find us. So I just wanted to mention, we're glad he's here, and like I said, he's starting up Oath Keepers. I have 2 more questions already, and then I think, Judy, you want to talk about the Dulce, right?
Well, if anybody has a question about Dulce, I think it's really important to hear Natalie Nicole's testimony. How she came about this. She's a world-class bodybuilder, world-class. She'll tell you that. And why this is needed for the athletes. Because the athletes get all that scar tissue and the signaling doesn't happen, and they're eating and drinking the worst things in the world. We all think Hulk Hogan died from steroids. He did not. He did not. I mean, you're killing the athletes. My friend, when I called Ed Group, it's because we needed to make that, because we needed the dimmer switch on the flame is your God-given endogenous cannabinoid system. I'm drinking an IPA it's a terpene and an acid extract. This product called Fix is an acid extract, and people will make their own GLP. So if you're drinking the snake venoms or injecting yourself, look at the TVs. Ask your doctor if it's right for you. You just agreed to participate in a phase 3 clinical trial. Once you took the pre-sample, you gave up your informed consent. You agreed to participate, and that's why Merck thanks you in their commercials, because you're killing yourself and they don't even have to pay for it.
So we have 2 more questions.
Judy, first of all, welcome to the great state of confusion. I'm going to take this one off the ground. I want to ask you if you can comment at all on what we're calling chemtrails and how they interact with vaccine. I've heard a lot of different things. I was wondering if you're knowledgeable in that area. Thank you.
Well, who I read on that is Dane Wigington. So Dane Wigington is the person who did that. Yes, they're chemtrails, they're not contrails, and they're loaded with various metallics as well. And those things fall to the earth and they're killing the soil. So you can put some copper rods at the corners of your gardens. You can take eggshells, never been in a grocery store, grind them all up, get the calciums in there, get a little borax in your soil, because that's 20 milliliters borax. You're washing your clothes with 2 things, oxy powders and 20, that'll take out the lipids. Dimmer, this is a fat signaling system, and I showed you that 2014 drug metabolizing enzymes. Cannabis lipids. We can extract the oil from our plants. So the metals come down, the metals go into the soil. We have a phyla called Archaea. So the other thing in oncogenics is Archaea. So Archaea are not bacteria, but they're like a parallel lineage, and they gobble up plastic in the soil. So we put those also, there's something called Eurbiotics, and you can put it in your plants, and you can put it in a pill, and you restore that essential nutrient sensing pathway for chewing up all the various plastics and heavy metals. So there's a lot of things in those trails. I prefer to think that they're spraying good things on us now, but we see that our roses and plants are dying. And my gardener said, I said, come on, I didn't put all that coffee on them. And he said, no, it's coming out of the sky. So we're killing the leaves, and different pathogens take over in our soil and our plants. We've got to grow our own food. We've got to go to restaurants. I hope Roxanne will tell everybody, or you know the name of that restaurant, because it's fabulous. They're growing it right there along different kinds of plants, and you're mixing it and you're fermenting and just such great food today for lunch. So that's what the chemtrails are. They're chemicals. We don't know if they're more forever chemicals like the PFOAs and E's and things, the plastics, but those are in the bottles that we're all drinking right around here. And so, again, it's almost unavoidable, a credit card of plastic every week. So it's the soil that is the problem, because your plants are no longer nutritious. They're no longer food. And so we can't make aspirin out of willow tree bark anymore because we ruin the soil. So they got Tylenol in there. Anybody know what Rye syndrome is? Look it up. Oh, that's how we got aspirin, and Tylenol was never grandfathered under the 2004. It's a crime, FDA, Bobby's coming, and I'm going to stand there because ain't nobody going to my house again. That's what Tony Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan promised me. We saved 5 million black people that day. And we couldn't even mention, how many people attacked me? Online, you're a Christian. You called him the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that's what his people called him. And we saved 5 million black people on December 18, 2020. Because every other one of us answered Bobby's call and his call, from Dr. Noah Choinder to Jack Lyons Weiler, every person in the Nation of Islam, everybody was in that room. And we told him what I showed you here. He didn't even use a pencil. And he told it back to us, and we saved 5 billion black people in the United States.
Question back here. This is the last question, and then if we want to just let Natalie make a comment about her.
I'd love you to talk, because I love your stories. So come on up. These are testimonies. God.
You have mentioned Dr. Brian Ardis a number of times tonight.
Yep.
and I've listened to him for quite a while. And he speaks about snake venom as well as using nicotine patches. Can you expand on that?
Yes. So the nicotine is at the top of this. We make it from lipids. In this picture, when the stillborn, the birth, what is a viviparous lizard? Oh, by snake venom. The snake needs a fang. Don't help it. Don't inject it. You know, so snake venom, coniferous snakes, so they literally walk through the literature, and that's what Brian Artist did. He's a sweet young man. He's very young, and he listens to me. So he'll give a talk, and he'll say, she's going to tell me I'm wrong. And I sit in the back of the room, and I wait until he finally says something wrong, and I say, you're wrong. And he'll sit at the front table and try to figure out what he said, and that's really important. So snake venom. You don't inject things from coniferous snails. You don't, it's our water that is poisoned. It's our coral reefs that we're losing. You don't take the various, I only know one, and I'm trying to think of fulvic or humic, and this is where it's going to work with what she's taking there. Asbestos, if you use, there's a product called Ivini, and it's an antidote for something, and so I don't want to, because they charge me with cease and desist. Don't. And I said, all you have to do is take it with Cardio Miracle. You can't say that. Yes, I can, because if you take that without a foundation, then you cause it to be asbestos. You can kill yourself with it. You know, asbestos, they took it out of our ceiling and they sprayed it in our railroad cars. You know, they inject it because mesothelioma. Again, so yes, snake venom. He showed you through the literature, like I showed you in that paper up there by viviparous liquor. Syncytin. It isn't always was syncytin. From what animal, mammal? You know, we don't lay our eggs in the soil anymore. That's why you need implantation. That's why everybody's sterile. That's what they wanted, to end mother-to-child transmission. Sterile women, there never was mother-to-child transmission. So Teresa has the real Anthony Fauci. Read it. That's the one that shows you all of this. So yeah, snake venoms. I think God made snakes. But you don't crawl on the ground with them, and you certainly don't inject their parts. And if you want to solve the problem, camel hump fat. Camel hump fat, camel hump fat. The hump never goes down. I don't care whether you use 2 humps or 1, camel hump fat. Slow release delivery system, because the snakes don't bother you.